Welcome back to Joy Recovery Radio, where we're dedicated to helping couples find healing and hope after sexual infidelity and betrayal trauma. We share real stories, practical strategies, and deep insights to support you on both sides of this difficult journey. We truly believe this message can change lives, and you can help us reach more people by engaging with our content. Wherever you listen, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, please hit that follow or subscribe button. A quick like and a 5-star review also goes a long way, helping others discover our community when they need it most. Let's dive into today's episode.
What I want to talk about is what I see as an epidemic, a significant problem among sex addicts, and that is abusive behavior that is coupled with it. And if you're familiar with the Minwalla model, then you're very familiar with what I'm talking about. But when it comes to abuse, I know that that is a word that can have very strong reactions from us men, that is a very hard label for us to accept. And so if you were just to replace it with the word mistreatment or causing harm, that's in essence what we're talking about here. And it is an epidemic. The most common presenting goal that I have with the men that I work with is I want to stop my abusive behavior. And as we stop the addictive behavior, the abusive behavior does not typically stop. In fact, it can grow quite escalated because both of those behaviors, whether it's addictive behavior or abusive behavior, come from the same root. And if we don't deal with the root, then we're going to continue to see the fruit of those behaviors. I operate from two assumptions when I work with men and try to stop the abuse. And these are the two assumptions that are foundational. Number one, a sense of agency. We are accountable for everything we say and do. That is within our realm of control. We are responsible for that. We need to take ownership for that. And number two, under no circumstances is it ever okay to be abusive towards our partner. There are no exceptions to this. I've actually worked with men who pushed back on one or both of these assumptions with an argument that, no, you don't understand. I'm not always responsible for what I say and do because she does this or she does that, and it makes me do this and it makes me do that. Or sometimes in some situations, it is okay for me to harm my partner because it's, quote, self-defense. Anytime a person cannot agree with these basic assumptions, then we really have no ground to stand on. And there's really nothing that I can do to help them until they, first of all, repent from those two false beliefs. We are the only people who are responsible for our words and our actions. No one can change what we say and do but us. And there is never an exception where it is okay for us to be abusive and to cause harm towards our partner. So as a brotherhood, we have to have zero tolerance towards abuse. We have to have the attitude with each other, speaking the truth in love, that this must end, and it must end now. It must end immediately. It is never okay to abuse God's daughter, and He will not put up with it, and we should not put up with it. It's not a process of weaning off of the abuse, nor is it a process where we would consider less abuse to be progress. It is to stop. There is to be zero tolerance. And we have to make sure that we don't grow numb to it, that we don't begin to accept it with our silence. When we are in conversations with other men and they admit that this past week I abused my partner, there should be outrage, strong reaction. We don't want to grow numb to it. And sometimes the reason we grow numb to it is because we ourselves were also abusive to our partner this past week. So we just talk to the brother and say, yeah, I understand. It's really tough. We've got to take a strong stance against this. This is not to be accepted within our community. But in order for us to understand it, let's understand what it's not. Because there are some myths and some misunderstandings out there. Number one, it's not an anger issue. That's not the problem. I have never met a man who had an abuse problem who went to an anger management course and he stopped the abuse. Because the anger is the fruit, it's not the root. In fact, I would suggest anger is actually one of the excuses that we use to hide our abusive behavior. Things such as, well, you don't understand, Roy. I lost control in the moment. And that violates the first assumption that I just shared with you, that we are responsible for our words and our actions. We did not lose control. I've actually said to men before when they said, well, I lost control. I've actually asked men before, well, then why didn't you kill her? And they're always shocked when I ask that question. What do you mean? I would never do that. I would never kill her. But you just said you lost control. So how did you exercise enough control not to harm her physically or take it to its full extension? I've had men who are in the process of having an argument with their partner and being abusive with their volume, with their aggression, with their name calling. The partner will text Jacqueline. Jacqueline will tell me, you need to call this brother. I will call him, and this is how he answers the phone. Hey, Roy, how you doing? He didn't lose control. In fact, I would argue that he was very much in control, and this actually was a tactic to either gain or maintain control. Anger is a strategy. Anger is a tactic. Anger is a tool that we use because we feel like we're losing control over our partner. We use our physicality, we use our size, our strength, our volume, our tone, our facial expressions, our body language, our presence, our energy. We use everything in an aggressive, angry way to try and send a message that we are either going to gain control or we are going to keep our control. So it's not an anger problem. Let's make that really clear. Also, it's not a relationship problem. Yes, there may be relationship issues, but that's not at the heart or the core of the problem. That's not the urgent issue. Some couples, when they realize that there is abusive or what Dr. Minwalla calls IAD behavior going on, they conclude we need to go to relationship counseling. Here's the problem. It often makes it worse because it's not addressing the core problem. This isn't a relationship problem. This is an abuse problem. And the abuse needs to be addressed and it needs to stop. When a couple goes to relationship counseling for an abuse problem, it can have some unintended side effects. Number one, it may be misconstrued that she's part of the problem. Therefore, we're going to relationship counseling. Number two, an abuser can weaponize anything, including the words of the counselor. And abusers are very manipulative. So counselors are often manipulated by the abuser. Anytime I work with a man, I always do monthly check-ins with the partner because she's able to tell me how things are really going on. She's the only barometer of how things are really happening. If you use the example of a hurdle race, in a hurdle race, you start at the beginning and you have to cross each hurdle in order. And you don't skip a hurdle and go to the next one because that's considered to be a violation, a penalty, and you'll lose the race. When it comes to the relationship problem, the relationship is not the problem. The first hurdle that has to be addressed is the abuse. You don't have a communication problem. You don't have a conflict resolution problem. You don't have a relationship problem. You have an abuse problem. So it's not an anger problem, and it's not a relationship problem, and the victim is not the problem either. A lot of abusers will say, well, if she would only do blank, or if she would only stop blank, then I wouldn't have to do some of these IAD behaviors. This is a form of victim blaming. She asks too many questions. She's too angry during her hypervigilance or when she's triggered or when she's flooded. The victim is not the problem here. Part of the reason that we use these shoulds and should nots with our partners is because they are not submitting to our will. They're not following our control. They're not bowing down to our preferences. And that's really the heart of the problem, is we feel like we're losing control over them, and we use abuse to regain or gain control. So if anger is not the problem, and if the relationship is not the problem, and if the victim is not the problem, then what is the core of this? What is the actual root of the problem? Listen to this teaching from Jesus. He says in Luke 6, a good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. A tree is identified by its fruit. That's how you know what kind of tree this is. And listen to what he says. What you say and what you do flows from what's in your heart. He's saying our behavior, what we say and what we do, is the fruit, and our heart is the root. The way you know whether it's a good tree or bad tree is to look at the behavior and the words. That's the fruit. And those are a reflection of the root. Proverbs says it this way, above all else, notice the priority here. Above anything else, top priority, guard your heart. Why? Because everything you do flows from it. Abuse is a heart problem. It's not an anger issue. It's not a relationship issue. It's not the victim's fault. It comes down to the heart of the man. Now, I know we talk about potential causes like maybe he was abused in the past himself, or maybe there's some kind of mental disorder going on, or maybe he had some trauma in his childhood, or maybe this is just the man box. This is just the collective socialization of masculinity where we have learned to be abusive and controlling towards women. All of those can be contributors, but they're not causes. If we follow the teaching of Jesus, there's only one cause that leads to what we say and what we do, and that is our heart. That is the root of abuse. Let's look at it this way. The Bible talks about what it looks like when someone has a heart that's full of pride. That pride is the root of all sin. And when I have a heart of pride, it will lead to betrayal. It will lead to infidelity. But that same heart of pride will also lead to control and abusive behavior in my relationship. So this is what it looks like. Because of my heart of pride, I use power to try and control my partner. And the fruit of that, the root is pride, the fruit are some of these behaviors. Whether it's making excuses, whether it's a heart full of resentment, whether it's going into defensiveness or avoidance, whether it's deception and lies, whether it's blame shifting and Darvo, and now we're blaming the victim, whether it's no empathy or further betrayal, whether it's self-pity or a lack of remorse, whether it's being aggressive or being numb or being harsh, or pathologizing her reactions to our abuse, going into victim mode, violating boundaries. You see the fruit here. This fruit comes from a heart of pride. Pride that wants to use our power to control our partners. Here's the main thing I want us to understand today. Control is the goal. That is the goal. Every one of these behaviors listed on here is all about control. It's only about control. Abuse is always about control. And so what we have when we put all this together is a simple definition of abuse. Abuse is a result of a heart of pride, which uses our power to either gain control over our partner or to maintain control over our partner. It is not enough to try really hard to minimize these behaviors, to reduce these behaviors, to eliminate these behaviors. and to do a spiritual bypass over the heart. If we don't change the heart, we won't see a change in the behaviors. It has to be addressed at the root in order to see a change in the fruit.
At joy-recovery.com, we offer personalized recovery coaching to help you move from pain to purpose. We also provide supportive groups where you can connect with others who truly understand. So, whether you're battling addiction, healing from betrayal, or rebuilding a brand new relationship, you're not alone. We can help. Go to joy-recovery.com today.
What the Bible talks about is that we are to humble ourselves. We are to have a heart of humility, not a heart of pride. When I have a heart of humility, this is what I do. Instead of using my power to control my partner, I use sacrifice to serve my partner. It's coming from a heart of humility. And when I humble myself and I use my sacrifice to serve my partner, this is the kind of fruit that you see in your life. Fruit such as I am now a safe container for her emotions. I now grow in empathy. I take ownership when I harm her in some way. I don't go into victim mode, but I see her as the true victim. I have genuine remorse for what she's lost because of my sin, and I make amends to her and a living amends to her. I am focused on her and not self-focused. I honor whatever boundaries she needs because her safety is my top priority. I place her needs ahead of my needs. I am transparent with her. I practice self-control. I am patient with her. I am faithful to her. I take the initiative. I take action. I'm not passive or lazy. I am engaged with her. And I put her well-being ahead of my own. That's humility. When this is done, we have healing take place. The definition of healing is a result of a heart of humility, which uses sacrifice to serve our partner. We let go of trying to control our partner. How do you know when a man has truly changed? It's not just that he stops doing those previous behaviors we looked at, but he starts doing these behaviors. And not just faking it for a few weeks or a few months, but we're talking about sustained humility, daily humility. One of the ways we know whether someone is proud or humble is in their relationships, because pride and humility have that in common. They're both relational. When someone has a heart of pride, it affects all their relationships. When someone has a heart of humility, it impacts all of their relationships, not just our relationship with our partner, but how we relate to our boss, how we relate to our neighbor, how we relate to extended family, how we relate to our kids, how we relate to the waiter even. If someone has a heart of humility, you should see changes in 3 areas: how they relate to God, how they relate to themselves, and how they relate to others. A constant theme in Scripture is that we are commanded to humble ourselves. Here's just a few examples. If we humble ourselves, God will hear us, He'll listen to our prayer, and He will heal us. God requires us to walk humbly with Him. If we humble ourselves and we come near to God, God will draw near to us. If we elevate ourselves, we will be brought low. We will be humbled. But if we humble ourselves, we will be elevated. And then finally, Jesus put it this way: take my yoke upon you and learn from me. He's saying, harness yourself to me and follow my example. Learn from me, because here's how I am. I'm gentle and I am humble in my heart, and you will find peace. So the Bible is replete with an admonition to humble yourself. Here's why. God's plan A is always for us to humble ourselves, which is a choice. It's an act of our will. God's plan B is he will humble us. He will humiliate us. We either humble ourselves, and if we refuse to do that, God will humiliate us. And it's not because he's a killjoy. It's not because he doesn't love you. It's not because he's not for you. It's because your pride is destroying you, and it's destroying everything around you. I would suggest that your day of discovery was actually God's attempt to humble you. I think that is God's invitation to give us a heart of humility that he could work with. But for those of you who you weren't discovered, you disclosed. The reason you disclosed is because you humbled yourself and you came clean to your partner. The outcome will always be humility. That will be the outcome eventually. We either humble ourselves or we go through the painful experience of God humbling us. But the outcome is the same. Jesus taught an alternative view of power. He says in Matthew 20, if you look at the world, they look at power differently. Those who are in power in the world, they abuse it. But it's got to be different with you. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be a servant. Even I, God in the flesh, Jesus says, even I didn't come to be served. I came to serve. In fact, I came to lay down my very life. So Jesus gives us an alternative view of being human, an alternative way of seeing power. He says, in my upside down kingdom, in my alternative kingdom, those who are last will be first. Those who are great are servants. Those who have power and authority and leadership, they don't lord it over others. They don't try to control others. They support others. They serve others. Probably the most beautiful picture of this is the very last action Jesus did before he went to the cross. He's in a private upper room with his 12 disciples, and they're about to have their final dinner together before he's murdered. And this is what he said to them. He knew that he had power over everything. He had more power than anyone in that room. He had more power than anyone in the universe. And here's how he wielded that power. He got up from the table. He wrapped a towel around his waist. He poured water into a basin, and he washed their feet. They had strong reactions to this. Rabbi, you shouldn't be doing this. You're better than this. Let the servants do this. But this is what he said. I've given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. Isn't it telling that this is the very last lesson that he gave to his followers before he died? In Philippians 2, it describes how Jesus looked at power this way. It says that we must have the same attitude that Jesus had. He gave up his divine privileges. He emptied himself. I love that picture. And he took the humble position of a servant. He humbled himself to the point of laying down his very life for others. The standard of being a husband is the example of Jesus. We have an alternative way of loving our partners. Ephesians 5 says we're called to sacrifice for our wife, to love her more than we love ourselves, to lay down our rights, to lay down our privileges, to lay down our preferences, to lay down our needs, and to put her needs above our own. That's humility. That's servanthood. And Jesus is the standard for this, and Jesus is the source of this. We're told to never be harsh with her. We're told to fully understand her, to become a student of your wife, to earn a PhD in who she is and what she needs so that you can serve her well. We're told to treat her with honor, to value her, to cherish her, to see her as a treasure, and to live as equals where we're not trying to gain or maintain control over her. When we fail to do this, it says God will not listen to our prayers. and he will not help a man who doesn't love his wife like this. And then we're told that when it comes to love, we are to be patient and kind. We're to never be jealous, never be proud, do not demand our own ways, where our preferences become rights and demands. To not be irritable, to not keep a record of her wrongs and how she's done us wrong, to never give up, to persevere, and to always endure. Jesus taught us an alternative way to look at power. He's saying, you don't have power over your partner. You have power under your partner. And let me tell you, and this is not coming from a place of bragging, but this is just coming from a place of testifying. I was an abuser. Every one of those tactics on the bad tree, coming from a heart of pride, that was me. And that was my relationship with Jacqueline. And it wasn't until 3 years ago that I had a transformation in my heart that is sustained by daily humbling myself. That there has been, by God's grace, no IAD, no abuse, no control. And let me tell you what I consider to be the secret to sustaining that. It's a simple prayer that I pray, not just words, but from my heart every morning. God, help me to love and serve my wife well today. When I humble myself every morning and I try to empty myself of Roy and ask God to fill me with His Spirit and help me, empower me to do what I cannot do on my own, and that is to love and serve Jacqueline well. And then at one point every morning, I speak that over her. I speak that to her. I tell her, I'm so privileged. I'm so grateful to have another day with you. And my commitment to you is, I'm going to love and serve you well today. You are the most important human on the planet to me. And I die to myself so I could love you well today. I'm not saying this is easy. In a very real way, it's like trying to go down and up escalator. It goes against the default of my heart. Every morning I wake up prideful and selfish, and I have to die to that every morning. And sometimes I have to crucify Roy multiple times a day, humble myself, empty myself, take on the form of a servant, put my wife's needs above my own. How can I love and serve her well? The result has been I have seen a woman who is meeting her potential, who is flourishing, who is healing, who is becoming everything beautiful that God designed her to be. That's power under someone, not power over someone. That's using our power, our leadership, our influence, our opportunity to support, to heal, to serve, to not try and control from a heart full of pride. I know that there may be some pushback to this. This may be hard to receive. Some of you may be saying, it can't be as easy as just a heart issue to shift from a heart of pride to a heart of humility and service. That's too simplistic. That's too reductionist. And I would just close with a challenge of two questions. Number one, what's your current strategy? And number two, how's that going for you? Have you been able to overcome the fruit of abuse without addressing the root in your heart?
That wraps up another episode of Joy Recovery Radio. We hope our conversation today brought you clarity, comfort, or a new perspective on your journey. Remember, healing is possible, and you don't have to walk this path alone. To learn more about how we can support you, visit us at joy-recovery.com. There, you'll find information about our individual and couples coaching practice designed to provide tailored support for both addicts and betrayed partners. You can also explore our various online groups, offering safe and confidential spaces for connection, shared experience, and growth. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, choose joy.